Everybody, welcome. We are here at another edition of the KWYPGPA podcast, and I have with us today Jennie Wolek. So Jennie, thank you for being on with us today. I really appreciate it. We're excited to hear a little bit about your story. So the first question, again, we always like to ask this is just tell us a little bit about how did you get started in real estate? Tell me about kind of you're just getting into real estate.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Connor. I'm so excited to share with you guys. I love sharing and giving back to realtors. It's actually my mission and purpose in life these days. And I have had a long path of figuring it out. And so thanks for letting me do what I love. So 21 years ago, so maybe older than some of you that are listening, I got into real estate, and it was totally by default. I had graduated from the University of Oklahoma after taking a very windy path of getting through college and then my master's degree, really not wanting to grow up. So I kept staying in school. I don't know if anyone can relate to that or not. And I finally got a professional job where I was in HR and benefits for this startup company, basically sitting at a desk. And it was in alignment with my master's degree in human relations, and it was not in alignment with my behavioral style. So I quickly realized that, this is miserable. The clock in, clock out is not for me. And at the same time, I had been waiting tables all through college. I loved the ability to earn my income at each shift. And I worked at a super popular place, so I could make $100 a night. It was so fun. So I was continuing to wait tables, miserable in my day job. And a friend of mine that I'd gone to high school with came up to me and started telling me how he'd just gotten into real estate and I needed to buy a house. And this was in 2001, and the market was really hot back then, especially in a college town that I was living in. So he was bragging to me about all the money that him and his colleagues were making in this real estate gig. And I'm like, Scott, listen, I can't buy a house. I don't have the money for that. And he said, well, then you should join us. Come sell houses with us. And so that is how I got into the business, totally by default, all about the money, miserable in my current profession. And that was it. It took me a while to really get my feet under me and get going. Early days of real estate, I was a total lead receiver. That meant that I was not with Keller Williams back then, just a small brokerage. And so I had no real training and tools and systems and models like we have today, other than just shadowing my mentors and other realtors and seeing what worked and what didn't work. And so, yeah, those were my early days of real estate. There you go.
I always say motivation is a double-ended sword, and at one end is a carrot and at one end is a stick. And it sounds like the stick for you was hating the other job and the carrot was the money going forward. So you kind of got hit from both ends there of like, okay, we need to make a move. So talk to me. So you mentioned just right there at the end, and you were at a small brokerage first. Mm-hmm. Is that where your friend was working, or walk me through sort of joining with that brokerage first, how you kind of got there, and then what was it that really started to transition you maybe out of that company and then eventually with Keller Williams?
Well, of course, I mean, I knew nothing about real estate, so I went and joined my friend at his tiny little brokerage where there were 5 people, no administrative help, all realtors, and I soon enough, I'd been in the real profession, the real clock in, clock out job for a year. So I was used to getting up every day and going to work at 9 a.m. and working till 5. And so when I started working there with them, I did the same. I had the same routine. I got up, went to the office. I didn't probably lead gen by our definitions today, but I was learning, I was shadowing, I was hopping in the car and listening to others. So I was getting into action. Now, I didn't know how to practice scripts or what to properly say. I was just kind of, again, figuring it out as I went. So what ended up happening was I stayed with that little company. I ended up partnering with the broker because he saw potential in me because I got up and showed up every single day. So I got to be his business partner. I got to learn all the ins and outs of office management, of mergers and acquisitions, because we ended up acquiring a Century 21. I learned about property management, about relocation. And so I was just a sponge. I was, 28 years old and just single and ready to learn and eager to learn. And so I was all in on that. Now, over time, what ended up happening is that I decided to move back home to my family here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was 2 hours away. So I'd been in the business for 4 years. I knew how to be a realtor, but when I came back home after 14 years of being gone, I didn't have a database here anymore. So I had to start over. So at least then at that point, I knew how to help people through the real estate transaction. I just had to start from scratch, from building a database. Eventually, I made my way to Keller Williams in 2007, which was really the defining moment, the number one defining moment. Coming to this company with a book that was already created that told me how to do this business. I was like, what? Now I could feel like I was on level playing ground with all the other realtors in town because I had the tools that I needed. And I was obviously very learning based. So that's all it took for me.
So there's a couple things there. One is, join the friend at the small brokerage, right? It's just who got you into it immediately. So why not join them? And
Right.
It was good that you learned, partner with the broker, right? And this was interesting. I didn't know this, but you moved. So where were you? And then you moved back to Tulsa. So where were you?
Norman, Oklahoma. That's where the
Norman,
University
Oklahoma.
of Oklahoma resides.
Got it. Okay. As an East Coast guy, I'm not as familiar with some of the towns there. So
You got it.
So you come back to Tulsa, and I think this is interesting, right? And a lot of agents think of this too. It's that, moving to a completely new town as an agent is kind of the same as a brand new agent getting started. The only
100%.
advantage is that you have a lot of skills of just actually having done some of the activities before. It's not theory, it's practical. So I guess let's even rewind a bit, because now, okay, so I want to get into kind of that first year at Keller Williams and learn what that is. But I think there's a step we skipped here a little bit, and that's you had a career, right? And you kind of touched on a little bit about, I had this regimen and this routine and this skill of coming in at 9, working through a full day. It must seem foreign to some realtors, but you come in and you work for that period. So talk to me a little bit about maybe some of the soft skills that you picked up in your previous career that you felt helped you the most as you really began to get some traction in real estate. So what were some of those soft skills you picked up?
Yeah, so I haven't even thought about it like this. So thanks for pointing it out. Really, the soft skills would have come from my being a server at a restaurant for 6 years, plus the corporate clock in, clock out job, because the skills that we need as a realtor to help people through this thing called real estate is having the skills to hear the needs, ask lots of questions, help them achieve their goal, and serve them. You are a servant leader in this profession. So the waiting tables was absolutely key to me understanding that I get paid in direct proportion to the service that I give. Then having a quote unquote real job, as right out of my master's degree that I took out student loans for, and I made $23,000 a year right out of the gate. That taught me the value of having a steady paycheck. And that was sure dang awesome to have auto deposit. And then also that I had responsibility and others. So I was then again taught that this is a real job. Real estate is a real job. Getting up every day, having a morning routine. It's very different today than what it was back then because life and family situations different. And I still have a very regimented morning routine. So that would for sure be the lessons, the skills of how to help people and the skills of how to take this as a serious job. It is your job. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we had done an interview with David Voorhees as well. And he had come from an extensive hospitality background. And he says that almost the same thing, you get paid in direct proportion to the service that you provide, right? That is such a hallmark. And that's why we always love to recruit, people from the restaurant industry, because you're right. It is a constant serving their needs, asking those questions, achieving the goals for them, right? Serving them is really the hallmark of your success. So now let's come into that first year, right? So now you've come back to Tulsa, you're sort of restarting a database, as it were. You've found Keller Williams. So maybe talk to me about how, getting into Keller Williams and getting acclimated with them. And then maybe touch on something that, worked really well for you quite early on, but also something that maybe didn't go quite as well as you thought it was. So talk to me through like that Keller Williams first year and then like a good and a bad.
Yeah. So before I got to Keller Williams, I was with a different brokerage. So it was just a small local boutique, a very, not small, I guess, a large local boutique. And the reason I joined that company was because being from this town, I'd always seen those signs around town, and that's what I associated with real estate. Keller Williams was pretty new to town back then, you guys, believe it or not. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, they were kind of Keller who. And so what I had experienced in Norman was that was just a place where you went and got trained and then you went and did the business other places. So that's the reputation they had. Definitely not now. Do not listen to that anymore. But back then that was my mindset. So I was at a different company, but I still knew a little bit about how to do this business, which meant I had to have leads. I had to have people to talk to. So immediately the things that I did, and this would be for you if you're new to the business, is I had to get uncomfortable with my natural behavioral style because I'm not naturally an extroverted people person. And I knew though that I needed to connect with other people. So I'm a woman, I was a younger professional, so I went and joined the local junior league. And so in that organization, you volunteer, which I love to do. You're giving back to your community, you're growing, you're learning, and you're connecting with like-minded professional women. And so that was my way to build my database, because I feel like you have to start with doing what you already love and enjoy and putting yourself into that situation. So whether it's other networking groups or other volunteer organizations, put yourself in situations where you're going to be with people that are like you, that you have great conversation with, and start building your database that way. Now, I think the other big part about my business building in the early days coming back home was, see, I'd been in Norman, Oklahoma. That was just 2 hours away from Tulsa. And they're very transient. There's a university there. People move from Oklahoma City to Tulsa all the time. And so I knew the whole realtor community in Norman. And we were all friends. We were small brokerages. We all got together. We all connected. So there wasn't like this, ooh, you're with a different company mentality. It was, we're all together. So when I got back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, I did the only thing I knew how to do, which was connect with my realtor friends back in Norman. This is before we used email at a high level, for sure before social media. We barely even text. I don't even think we had texting on our phones, you guys. So dating myself. And though I wrote a letter and I printed it out and I inserted a business card, and the letter said, hey, it's Jennie. I'm just letting you know that I've moved to Tulsa. If you ever need any help in the Tulsa area, I sure would be happy to assist your clients. And then, of course, I added in probably more fluff and relationship building stuff. It worked. I started getting realtors referrals from Norman and Oklahoma City area. And so this is now a huge piece, huge pillar of my business. 30% of our business comes from realtor agent to agent referrals. And whenever, last year we helped 192 families and 30% of those are agent referrals, that's a big business right there. So have that as part of your plan. It doesn't have to be, crazy, but have a little checklist and plan in place of how you can connect with other agents, build a database, stay in communication with them, build a relationship with real relationship. And it's just another great way to build your business. So it was building my database on purpose with people locally and building my agent database.
That's great. And I think the texting it was when you still had to hit like 2-3 times, then 555, 222. Yeah. So I love that. So 192 transactions, 30 of that being from referral. So that comes out 30%. To almost 40, 50 transactions at that point, maybe even a touch more. That's great. And sometimes it's like you said, a letter and a business card. I moved, happy to help you. I mean, how easy is that? I mean, how many agents do we have right now that had a college town or had a town that they used to grow up in? They still probably know some of those people, and there's almost less of an excuse because we do have social media now, right? We do have the texting, we do have all the cell phone access to everybody. So that barrier to being able to get back in front of those people has really been reduced at this point. So there's almost no excuse of that. Talk to me about something that didn't go so well. What was something maybe when you got in, or whether it was first brokerage or whatever, I know that you had mentioned the smaller brokerage, there wasn't a lot of admin help, but maybe what was a struggle that maybe something you thought that was going to go really well and maybe just fell flat, or just something where you really were like, oh, I have to pivot if I'm going to make this work. Talk me through like a struggle that you had that way.
Well, I would say that the thing that held me back was that my own mindset, my own fear, my own inability to get uncomfortable. And so rather than inserting myself into relationships or conversations or asking things that would produce a positive return, I was afraid of. So the big change for me really truly came when I took Bold for the first time. Bold is a training class, now 7 weeks. Back then it was, I don't know, 8 weeks or something. And I've taken Bold 18 times in person. So that has a huge, huge impact on who I am today and why I am where I am. But what had happened was it was 2010. I was a solo agent. I was just winging it. No purpose, no plan, no help. My daughter was a very little person, and I was pretty much a full-time mommy, part-time realtor. And finally, I started getting out of the fog of mommyhood, where she started going to Mother's Day out. In 2010, Bold came to town for the first time, and I was in that room. And having the mindset shift of I'm not bugging them, I'm simply offering them help whenever I talk to people. That was it. That was all that it took. Like all this fear I had of calling even people that I knew or even past clients, I was holding myself back because I was so afraid that they wouldn't like the phone call, or I would be interrupting them, or, they don't like, I don't know, whatever it is. And so all of that fear was holding me back until I shifted my thinking. I then, from the Bold room, had the scripts and the conversations of how to say it. I had the accountability of my team and the coach. And that changed everything. I went from being a solo agent in 2010 of helping 23 families to helping 54 families in 2011. So almost doubling my business by just picking up the phone and saying hello. That was it. So once I started doing that, it hasn't really let up from there. And I've continued to learn and grow. And now I get to share it with others on my team. And so every year after that, I'd have continual growth, and I would continue to grow in my leadership or lack of. Because when you are a young person without training and skills on how to lead others, you fail a lot. A lot of my failures were through people, because I didn't take the time to learn how to properly vet if they're the right fit through behavioral styles or career visioning. Back then it was the Recruit Select class that we had, same thing. And I didn't take the time to learn because I was too busy, quote unquote. I brought them into my world without proper training or accountability, and then they failed. And it's really all my fault, because I didn't set them up for success, or I didn't pour into them the way that they needed that. I've continued to learn and have grown. And so the leadership lessons are just that. You got to keep learning. I mean, if you look at my bookshelf here, it's going to be the John Maxwell's and then the tapping into your why and your mission. I'm a QL for young adults instructor, and I love that we get to empower our youth with all the tools and techniques and thinking that I didn't have when I was that age. I had to take so long to get it figured out, and I'm still working on it, and we all are.
So let's pull on that thread a little bit. And I just want to restate a number that you said there. 18 times?
Yes.
Both 18 times? Okay. Just going to say that out loud for everybody. 18 times. So this is not, motivation. I always say motivation is sort of like it's like a bucket with a hole in the bottom.
Yeah.
While you can fill it up over time, that'll kind of dissipate a little bit. It's always good to continue to wash over yourself, stay learning based, always download and bring in new information for yourself constantly, so that you're always kind of replenishing yourself and always staying on kind of the cutting edge of what's next.
Can I insert something
please,
before you go to your point, your question? The thing about the Bold was, I told you it changed my life. It was the moments that I finally went, aha, and everything changed. Well, in that, what happens with success, that's more production. And I told you I was failing in the leadership role. So I brought people into my team, and it was around 2000. Well, it was the end of 2014, for 2015 that I started feeling the breakdown. I was shaking. If you have taken bold, you know, you get to where it's chaotic and messy. And what starts happening if you aren't keen to it is that you start hating people. You start going through what's called a breakdown. And that's where I was. I was not properly leveraging with the people around me because I hadn't learned how to let go of things. I thought only I could do certain things, or I'll just go ahead and do it real quick. So I'm paying salaries, paying out commission splits to team members, and then I'm still hanging on to way too much stuff. I've learned since to let that go, but that takes time. But what happened was in 2015, I had 2 agents on my team and 2 admin. The 2 agents that I had leveraged off all the buyers and sellers, because I told you I hated people. So the last thing you want to do when you are so miserable is pick up the phone and talk to people. So the lead gen was going down, me and my energy was way down. And one agent I let go because she had been unethical, and we don't play that here. And then another agent on my team that had helped with the listings, she decided to go live her dream at the beach, which I knew was her 5-year plan, but she just sped that up a bit. So in 1 week, I got both jobs back of being a buyer agent and a listing agent when I hadn't done either for like 6 months. That was interesting. Luckily, I had a coach at the time, and I said, wah, wah, poor me, had the pity party for a second. And then we got into action. And what did I know how to do? I knew how to get in the bold room. And so that was March of 2015. And there was not a bold being offered in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but there was one in Oklahoma City, which is 2 hours away. So I signed up and I drove 2 hours, 7 times over 7 weeks. And guess who I am? I'm a Tulsa agent in a classroom of 100 Oklahoma City agents. And guess what comes from that? Lots
More
of
referrals.
Agent referrals. So the time that I was having the roughest, toughest time in my business, I went to the classroom, because what I learned is when I was in that classroom, that allowed me to have 1 day a week of working on me, my mindset, my business, my skills, and that gave me the rest of the week to go do the business. So this is the working in your business versus on your business. We have to still work on our business, on our mindset, on our energy. And so I ended up doing that 4 more times that year. 2015, I took bold 4 times, 3 of them in Oklahoma City. And I was like, well, this is kind of working. So the next year I took bold in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in Joplin, Missouri. And so over a couple of years, I took bold outside of my market center 5 times. That could have something to do with my referrals.
I was going to say, I mean, bold could literally be a lead generation strategy. I mean, one of the things I really liked that you said, and our agent services, it's kind of funny, and I think that's why it's gravitating to the top of my mind here, is she had posted in our internal Facebook page, and it was a disc assessment. I mean, we're all familiar with the disc assessment, right, Heidi? But what it did was it didn't just break down the disc. It then broke down all the individual lead generation strategies that are probably the best for your mentality. And it's get in, enjoy the place. And you said this about the women's group that you were kind of had joined into when you moved to the new town. Get into the people and the places that you enjoy, and then do your lead generation there. I mean, don't fight uphill. If you don't like door knocking and that doesn't bring you any joy, and it's against your mindset and it's against everything that you have, there's a little bit of shake the trees to make sure that it's not just a limiting belief, but ultimately get into those rooms. So I really love that. The bold, and many times you did, taking it out of your market, I think is an incredibly important one that a lot of people, and especially where a lot of our audience is here in Pennsylvania and our region, we're 46 market centers. There's always a bold going on just 2 market centers down the road or something like that. So I would encourage people to consider that. So we got about 7 minutes here. So what I want to kind of jump into a little bit, and you had touched on this a bit, so I want to see if you want to expand on it just a touch, is look, when you go through some of those 2014, those 2015s, things get hard, right? And then you also said you got to take 1 day a week to kind of, and I call it kind of resharpening the saw, right? If you're going to be cutting a tree down, you can't just keep cutting. Every once in a while, you got to resharpen that thing. So I'm glad that you take that day to do it. But things get hard for agents.
Yeah.
And what our coaches always come back and tell us is, well, why are we doing this? So I'm sure your why, right, from the default of just needing some money and getting away from whatever, the job that you hated was, I'm sure that was one thing. But now today in your business why do you continue to wake up? Why do you continue to push forward? Why do you continue to do almost 200 transactions? What's your why?
My why absolutely comes from tapping into my mission and my purpose in life. And it took me a long time to figure it out. We teach this in Quantum Leap, is discovering what you just naturally love. What is in your heart that you would do, whether you were paid to do it or not? And then what are you actually really good at the same time? So what do you love and what are you naturally good at? That is going to be in alignment with your mission in life. Now, it took me that year of the breakdown and the coming through on the other side. And it was around 2015 that I was in the first room with Gary was teaching us how to be QL for young adults instructors. And so those were the same, it was in alignment. Funny how life works, that I had this aha moment. And I woke up early in the morning one day after a coach had asked me, what was my $50 million question? The answer to that. And the question is really this, Connor: if you had $50 million in the bank right now, and you had paid all your debts, you had traveled the world, everyone in your life is healthy and happy, you've acquired all the monetary things you've ever desired, then tomorrow when you wake up, what do you do? Now, why that switched my thinking from the big why question, because my association with the big why was, why do I work? Why do I make money? And nothing was motivating me enough. Nothing was inspiring me. Of course, I care about my daughter going to college and having a great life and a legacy. Of course, I care about that stuff. That didn't get my butt out of bed every day. And when I switched it to, it is bigger than that goal, it is an ongoing mission. And I discovered that my mission, I've tweaked my mission statement so many times over the years because they keep evolving. But really, if I were to say it now, it would be to empower others to tap into their potential and their possibilities so that they start living their best lives now and not waiting. Because I see so many of us just struggling. They're not taking the vacations or time blocking for family first because they don't have a plan. They don't have a mission. They're just grinding it to grind it. They don't know how much money they need for their wealth building and their future because they haven't just paused to do the math. And they could really, maybe they only need to sell 50 homes a year to achieve this goal. But you're grinding because you think everybody else is grinding or sells more than you, but you got to do what's you. So that's where I am now. My mission and my purpose is to spread the word so that all of us live our best lives now. You can have a great real estate business. Now, how can you fold that into your business? That's the key. So if you are super passionate about homelessness or children that are in need, then start attaching your commission check percentages to those charities or create your own. I'd advise against it. It's a lot of money and a lot of work because I have one, but whatever it is, start with just giving back in your own community. We have something we came up with back around that same time. It's called Keys to the City. And with every commission check, we let our clients know we're going to make a $100 donation to their favorite nonprofit. Now, whenever we help almost 200 families, that's my team giving back 20 grand to the Tulsa area. And every nonprofit appreciates every penny that you can give. So attach your purpose and your passion, what you already love and what you're good at, and attach it to your business. And that will get your butt out of bed every day to pick up the phone. Because when you get to help them buy or sell a house, that allows you to do what you love and give back.
So I was going to ask you, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self? But I think you pretty much just hit it out of the park, right? With that. And, I love that too, because you're right. Sometimes the why, so many people, they sit down with a blank piece of paper and they're like, what's my why? I don't know. You're right. You don't even know where to go with that discussion, but I love the idea of, right, you have all this money in the bank, everything's taken care of, and you wake up and put yourself, you're kind of just sitting out of bed, you're sitting there, you're looking at the floor, whatever. It's like, What am I going to do today? Right. I think that's such a better way. It's a more realistic way to kind of start to envelop some of those things. So
Yeah.
with our last just kind of couple minutes here, just last 2-3 minutes here, tell us a little bit about what's going on for you now. Is there anything that you have going on that maybe you'd like to share with the audience, or ways that people can maybe get involved with you? And you said you're always open to those agent referrals, but what are some other things? What are some other things that you want to make sure we highlight about you and your business right now?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've just shared my mission with you, you can see that it is big. And there's no end to it. That's the point. But there's a difference between a goal and a mission. Your goal has an end date and a mission goes on forever. So with my mission to empower others to live their best life, that I do that through teaching and training and coaching and sharing. And so I have a Facebook group. It's called Your Journey with Jennie, the group. I also have a new membership group. So inside of my membership group, you'd get, a weekly webinar, a one-on-one call with me in the month, and then also access to all my training classes. So over through the pandemic, I didn't get to travel and train and live my mission. So I created some online versions. So I have Mirror My Business, which is a 2-hour class, and then a 6-week class called Implement My Business, where I really give you all the stuff that we do in our business that allows us to have a lot of fun, help a lot of families, give back to our community, and just have your best life now. So I love doing that. So you're welcome to hop into any of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to ask you, please send me over any of the information that you have on that. And when we go ahead and post this on the channel and stuff, I'd love to include all that information just below it, because I think that's fantastic. I mean, being able to, like you said, mirror the business, some of these classes that you offer, the membership part of it, all the trainings, that's invaluable to people, right? And if anybody does feel gravitated to sort of the way that you've built your business, the way that you operate today, I highly encourage you to reach out. So we're right here at the end of our time. And again, I want to make sure that we're right at our 30 minutes. So Jennie, I appreciate it. I'm going to have you hang on for just a second. I'm going to end the recording, but thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody sticking around. And Jennie, I can't thank you enough. All right.
Yeah.